I recently bought a stunning high-rise condominium right across from the train station. It's a great spot, but of all things to bring up, why did he suddenly mention it? He had, after all, made the purchase, and it's impressive. The view is incredible, and the apartment is spotless. But here's where I get lost. I was shocked to discover that, while I was at my parents' house, he secretly bought this luxurious place. How did he even afford it? I was stunned, but he casually mentioned that the down payment came from the sale of our old home. To make matters worse, he announced he would be moving in with his parents and that I was no longer welcome. He made the decision without even consulting me, and then, without warning, asked me to leave. I was so taken aback that I couldn't form a response. I'm Carol, 31 years old, a housewife, and 8 months pregnant. My excitement about meeting my baby is growing each day, but so are my nerves about childbirth. Terry, my husband, is 33, 2 years older than me, and works at a prominent company. We've been married for 4 years, and after struggling with conception, I was overjoyed to finally get pregnant, but with the big day approaching, I couldn't help but feel anxious. To ease the tension, I often visit my in-laws, and during one of those visits, Terry's sister-in-law, Madison, asked me, "Carol, what do you think motherhood will be like? You're about to become a mom." Honestly, I still couldn't quite wrap my head around it. Madison is married to Terry's brother, and she's one of the reasons I look forward to these visits. While I don't talk much to my brother-in-law, Madison and I have grown close. She's a housewife too and lives with my in-laws to care for my mother-in-law, who's had mobility issues for the past couple of years. I admire how she took on that responsibility so naturally. Her experience as a mother to her 4-year-old daughter also reassures me as I near my own due date. As the days passed, my due date approached, and I decided to stay at my parents' house to prepare for the birth. I was enjoying the time there, despite the heaviness of my pregnancy. However, 3 days past my due date, contractions started. I tried reaching Terry, but he was unreachable. No calls, no texts, nothing. At first, I thought something had come up, but as my contractions intensified, there was no time to focus on that. I ended up delivering our beautiful baby girl. When I first held her in my arms, all my worries melted away, but Terry missed the birth. Exhausted, I sent him a message, letting him know we had a daughter, and fell asleep. When I woke up, I heard someone call my name. Still asleep? Huh, Terry, is it morning already? My husband, along with his parents, was standing by my bedside, despite my earlier request for privacy. They were here. "Why didn't you come yesterday?" I asked, frustration creeping into my voice. Terry didn't answer my question directly. Instead, he casually shrugged it off. "It couldn't be helped," he said, as though the situation was trivial. I was left feeling a mix of joy for our daughter and deep disappointment in Terry's absence when I needed him the most. He spent time with his parents at a sushi restaurant, justifying it as a prior commitment. Afterward, he didn't visit the hospital, citing that he had been drinking and wouldn't have been much help. It stung to know he was out enjoying himself while I was in labor. When he finally came, he asked casually, "Where's our baby?" I told him she was in the nursery, healthy and well. My mother-in-law then muttered, "What a girl, such a useless wife." Her harsh words shocked me, and my father-in-law joined in, calling both Madison and me pathetic. Instead of offering sympathy, I was met with disappointment. Even Terry seemed upset, remarking, "I knew it was a girl but hoped for a boy." His parents were visibly disappointed as well. To me, the gender didn't matter. Our baby was perfect. Amid the tension, Terry sided with his parents, making me feel even more alone. Although I wanted to confront them, the exhaustion from childbirth kept me quiet. Thankfully, a nurse overheard and asked them to leave, giving me a brief respite. Terry didn't visit again after that. When we were discharged, I called my parents to pick us up and take us to their house. I didn't want to return to the house filled with tension. As I thought about the changes in Terry, I remembered a significant incident at work 2 years ago, a mistake that had cost his company a lot, even though his colleagues shielded him from the fallout. Ever since, I noticed his growing distance and frustration, especially at home. To make matters worse, one of his juniors, less competent than he was, had now become his boss. I wondered if this shift in his career was affecting his behavior toward me. Despite my disappointment, I still hoped the arrival of our baby might inspire change in him, but it seemed like nothing had improved. I began to worry about our future. Then Terry called. "When are you coming back? You've been at your parents' for nearly a month now." I wasn't ready to go back yet, but I replied, I'll come soon. It's time to start fresh for our daughter. I mentioned that I needed help bringing baby items home. His response shocked me. You don't need to bring all that stuff back. Actually, I've got something to tell you. Maybe I should have just said it over the phone. Confused, I pressed him for more. Then he dropped a bombshell. I bought a high-rise condo right across from the station. I was stunned. Why are you telling me this now? He went on about the stunning view and how clean the place was. I couldn't wrap my head around it. You bought a condo? Why? How could you afford it? I asked, panic creeping into my voice. He casually replied, I made the down payment by selling our house. I was in shock, processing the fact that he had sold our home and moved into this luxurious condo while I was away. Where's your family living now? I asked, trying to make sense of it. He answered enthusiastically, Mom and Dad are living with me in the condo. I'm moving in with them, so I don't need someone like you around anymore. The blow hit hard. He was telling me he had decided, without consulting me, to move in with his parents and kick me out. I couldn't even respond. He called his parents Daddy and Mommy like a child and insulted me, saying, You're useless as a housewife. You're nothing without my money. His words stung, cutting through the remnants of my respect for him. His sudden changes in behavior and life decisions, without so much as a discussion, left me reeling. During my pregnancy, when I was dealing with sickness and preparing for our child, he showed no empathy. After the birth, he cruelly remarked that I was useless because we had a daughter. To make matters worse, he said his parents wanted him to be with a younger woman who could bear a son. He also told me they no longer wanted to live with my brother and his wife, adding to the family tension. He had packed up my belongings and told me to come get them soon. Then, without waiting for a reply, he hung up, leaving me in stunned silence. I was left reeling, struggling to understand how I had ended up married to someone so cold and heartless. Though regret gnawed at me, I knew I had to stay strong, for the sake of my daughter. After some time to think, I made a decision. It was time to cut ties with him and start fresh. I wouldn't let him control my life any longer. Divorce? I thought. Bring it on. I was determined to show him that the consequences of this would be worse for him than for me. When I explained the situation to my parents, their anger was palpable, and they immediately supported me in taking legal action. The moment I got the divorce papers, I signed them and filed. 2 weeks later, my husband unexpectedly showed up at my parents' house, furious over a large withdrawal from his bank account. Slamming his bank book on the table, he demanded an explanation. With calm resolve, I said, Haven't you heard of property division? This is it. The bank account is in my name, and you won't see a penny. Surprised by my response, he sneered, You couldn't have earned all that money. Your salary dropped because of that mess at work. You really think you can claim this? I stood firm. I've been working from home and matched your salary. Now, we're dividing our assets, especially since you're the one asking for the divorce. He stared, disbelief on his face. You're joking. That's when my father, who had been silent up until now, spoke up. If you want to take this further, we'll settle it in court. How dare you treat my daughter this way? What started as a personal dispute had now become a fight for legal and financial fairness. I was ready to fight for what was rightfully mine and protect the future I envisioned for myself and my daughter. It hurt to know she had to witness this mess, but it was the only way forward. When he tried to confront us again, my father, who is a police officer, gave him a look that was enough to send him fleeing. That was when I knew I was done with Terry for good. The asset division was settled, and I moved in with my parents, focused on raising my daughter. I was finally finding my rhythm with parenting, and my daughter's adorable nature made every day brighter. Life, though challenging, was filled with the kind of happiness only a child could bring. A few months later, I began receiving repeated calls from an unknown number. At first, I ignored them, thinking they might be work-related, but the caller persisted. Eventually, I answered, and to my shock, it was Terry. Hey, Carol, he said cautiously. What do you want? I replied, uninterested in anything other than straight answers. How have you been? He asked. I wasn't in the mood for pleasantries. What do you want? I repeated. I need you to come back, he pleaded. I'm struggling to pay the mortgage on the condo. I might get kicked out. Short on cash? I asked, not masking my lack of sympathy. Yes, he sighed. I've drained all my savings. Dad hurt his back and can't work, and Mom's been spending recklessly, telling her friends all about our life in the condo. I wasn't surprised. Terry had never been good with money, And his poor financial management, combined with his family's habits, had clearly left him in a tough spot. I have no money left, he continued, and I've been told I need to pay by next week or leave. Please, Carol, come back. We once loved each other. I chuckled bitterly. Oh, you want me back, not for love, but to cover your bills and handle the housework, don't you? There was a long pause. Remember when you called me a parasite? Wouldn't I just be a burden now? He fumbled. I didn't mean that. I pressed on. What about Madison and your brother? Are they still living with your parents? They moved out, he sighed. They had a huge fight with Mom and Dad. My brother wanted Dad to stop living so extravagantly, but it only made things worse. Terry's predicament was a direct result of his own choices, a mixture of poor financial decisions and family dynamics gone wrong. It was clear he was looking for a way to use me to escape his mess, but I had moved on, determined to build a better, healthier future for me and my daughter, one free from the chaos of my past with Terry. Eventually, my brother-in-law, who is typically composed, reached his breaking point. I heard that he'd told his parents that he'd cut ties with them if they didn't start respecting Madison. It was nice to see him stand up for her. He seemed like a decent guy after all. As for Terry, I couldn't help but laugh at his attempt to get me back. Come back to you? Are you serious? I'm already overwhelmed just raising our daughter. I don't have the energy to deal with people like you. I pointed out how odd it was for him to still call his parents mommy and daddy. It's just not right for someone your age, I added. He stumbled, trying to backpedal. You should bring our daughter over to live with us, he suggested. I shot back. Weren't you the one who first asked me to come back to live in the condo? Why would I want to put my daughter through that? He stammered, but his words couldn't change my resolve. I would never let my daughter live with such a despicable father.
Don't call me again.
And if you show up, I'll have my dad arrest you, I warned. His response was a weak sound, likely recalling my father's intimidating presence. I hung up and blocked his number. Not long after, he tried reaching me again from a different number, so I changed mine to sever all ties completely. A while later, I reconnected with Madison, who reached out to apologize for her silence. She explained that they'd moved to the countryside and were having trouble getting the internet set up. Madison and her family were now living in a peaceful rural area, and she invited me over. I visited them for the first time and was charmed by the tranquility of the place, perfect for a child to grow up in. During my visit, my brother-in-law shared that Terry and his parents had been evicted from their condo due to unpaid debts and were now facing severe financial hardship, a stark contrast to their former, lavish lifestyle. In a way, it felt like poetic justice. Meanwhile, I had been working from home and was comfortable at my parents' house. My job allowed me to work from anywhere, so I spent a few relaxing days at Madison's place. I even considered moving closer to them in the future, hopeful for the future I could build for my daughter and myself. Looking back, I realized how ridiculous it was for Terry to buy a high-rise condo impulsively while I was pregnant. Only someone with wealth could afford such a risk, and it was absurd for someone with his income to take such a gamble. In any case, I was relieved to be rid of such a selfish, manipulative husband. Now, I looked forward to continuing my peaceful life and possibly relocating near Madison's family, where everyone got along, and where my daughter could grow up in a nurturing, supportive environment. Music.